Welcome to the Finjan Show, and thank you for joining us today. This show is all about breaking myths about entrepreneurship and making sure that people know that entrepreneurship pathway and the mindset that entrepreneurs have. With us today, Devin Miller. Thank you so much for joining, Devin.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I was looking through your website and it sounds like you're doing really interesting things, supporting entrepreneurs with their IP and things of that nature. So maybe just a little background, Devin, like what is it, what do you do today and how did you get here? So those are the two questions I'm going to start with.
Yeah, so the primary focus, and I do a couple things. I kind of have two passions. One, I love entrepreneurship, startups, small businesses. So I've done a few of those. And I also do what you mentioned, which is intellectual property. So I have a law firm where we focus on helping startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks and other business related matters. So that's a very short, patents, just as a real quick summary. Patents are if you have an invention you want to protect and utilize as an asset, you'll get a patent on it. Trademarks go towards brands. And so if you're to have like name of a company, logo, catchphrase, or something like that. So we really help startups and small businesses as they're inventing something to protect what they're inventing and turning it into an asset as well. And same thing on the brand side of protecting it and turning that into an asset. As far as how I got started, so as I mentioned, I love startups, small businesses. I've always kind of had what I would say, people call them side hustles. I always think of them as just a second full-time job, but I've always pursued several different businesses. I've grown some businesses into 7 and 8 figure businesses. Other ones have been more, or fun ones, kind of more with the family and friends and family that are just small mom and pop stores. So as I've done that, I've always also loved helping other businesses to protect and grow their businesses as well. So I work for large law firm, top 100 law firms in the U.S. here, and decided I wanted to do my own thing and really focus on startups and small businesses. So about 3 years ago, I started my own firm.
Wow, that's a big jump to leave a nice established organization and take a pathway on your own. Was there a specific motive that got you to do that? And if so, what was it?
Yeah, I don't know if there was just one motive that pushed me, but I got to the point. So I've been doing, working for the big firms for about 6 years, and was looking kind of saying, what are the clients that I really want to work with, and also kind of what is the career path I want, and those kind of were the two questions that it kind of frequently came up, and kind of thinking about them. And as I was thinking about, first of all, I looked and said, I was working at the time, I was working with Amazons and Intels and Red Hats and Fords and others, and they were big clients, and they were certainly name recognition, and people understood what they were, but they, I was a much smaller cog in a big wheel. They had a lot of IP and portfolio, and so I didn't get a lot of impact on the business. I just simply did their patents. So I was looking, saying, but the ones I really loved was a started small business to where, hey, they're just getting started. They needed more guidance. They needed more direction and strategy, and there was ability to have a bigger impact and to help them. So I say those are the clients I like. And then I was also looking, saying, okay, big law firm, yeah, it has, in the one sense, it has stability, so to speak, and that they have a lot of big clients, but I don't have a lot of impact or direction on the firm. I don't have a lot of ability to try out new programs, to, try out different systems, to think outside the box, is the old cliche, overused cliche, but to do different things that are going to allow me to be entrepreneur within the legal industry. So that's kind of thinking about what are the clients I want, and also kind of I probably want to do more things that fit within the confines of a big law firm. That's when I started to say, well, why don't I start my own firm and start to pursue the passions that I have there. And then I eventually started out kind of doing it, or getting a lot of it up and going it on the side and figuring out how I wanted to do it. And then I made the jump.
That's awesome. What a story. And did you move? It sounds like you moved from one city to another city with that, or can you tell me a little bit about that journey?
So most of it was, I was in Utah. So I did law school in Cleveland, Ohio. I did a dual degree, an MBA degree, as well as a law degree. And I started out doing law clerk internships while I was in law school. So that's kind of where I started. But as I was looking to graduate, I moved back to Utah to work, and started with a kind of a medium-sized law firm, and started there before I jumped over to the bigger law firm. And I actually worked largely remotely with the larger law firm. So they had a small Utah branch that was just getting started. They were primarily based out of Palo Alto in California, as well as New Jersey and New York. So they had a lot of presence there, but they were expanding and they were moving into Utah. So I was one of the early on attorneys. And so I kind of had a mixture of about 80% of the time I was working remotely at a home office that I had set up. And then about 20% of the time I'd go into a small office they had there. So it was one where I'd really been in Utah ever since. And that's where my family and that's where I love, or the place that I love. But it was kind of working for larger law firms that were headquartered elsewhere.
It's okay. I mean, Utah is a beautiful place, so that's a great place to be. Devin, let's just take a short break. We'll be right back after this. Thank you so much for being with us. All right, welcome back, Devin. And what a story. So you launched on your own. You know, you've been around for 3 years now. So I always tell people, especially in the entrepreneurship space, the entrepreneurship pathway, and you know this, Devin, is high as it could be and as low as it could be. And sometimes it's actually in the same moment. Sometimes they're not, sometimes they are. I would love to hear what's your highest, feeling of achievement or accomplishments, and what's your lowest point, and just so we can just give some perspective to the listeners too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and you're right. I think that you can, within the space of a day or an hour or whatever, you can hit your highs and lows at about the same time. I don't know that there's just one high. I'm always looking to improve, always looking to do something different. So, I don't know that there's just a high point, say, hey, this is the pinnacle. But some of the things that I started out with just myself and a paralegal, and then we've now grown the team to have a few other attorneys. We've, grown to have some other support staff. We've grown in size and in the office, and also grown in clientele, which is a great. We've launched our own podcast. We've done new systems. We've done some DIY products, and so I don't know that there's one point where I just said, "Here's my one high," but it was kind of, as I look back, kind of that progression. The fun to see that started out really just with myself and one other individual, and seeing that progression, that growing, rolling out new systems, bringing on new clientele, offering new services, are kind of all been that progressive high that's been continually being exciting. Lows can be everything from, you have a bad day where you have a client that calls and gets mad at you and you're having to smooth over, things. It can be tracking down, people that are past due on their invoices and bills and trying to get them to pay. It can be, employees leaving, and we've had that ebb and flow where you have employees doing a great job and they have a better opportunity, or they have different lives or changes that they're wanting to pursue. And, those are always lows, and you're trying to figure out how to work your way past, making sure that you make payroll, making sure everybody's paid on time, making sure that you have the employees in place, and also that you're meeting the deadlines and keeping the quality. And so all of those things are kind of, to me, just kind of roll into a bundle to where I don't know if there's just one high that I reached a pinnacle, because I'm always looking to improve. And there's always lows that you're just going to say you're going to have to work your way through them.
Yeah, no, I agree. So it's never one, it's always lots of them. And those things could be in one day, many of them. So thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm curious, when you have those moments, what are the things that you do or tell yourself or keep going to keep you going, whether it's high or low? I feel it's the same way, because you could stop when it's high or you could stop when it's low. What do you do to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is to build a good support system around yourself. I mean, first of all, I've been married, I have 4 kids. And so keeping the work-life balance to where when I'm at home, I spend time with my wife, I spend time with the kids. I have projects that I work with them, everything from my son, I recently built a new bunny hutch with them, and that was a fun project, to the other things with my daughters. And, I think that balance helps you to pull you back in from when things are hard at work. You can have things outside of work that you still find enjoyable. And then I also think, having people on the business side that are mentors that are around you, that you can, if nothing else, vent, you can complain, you can get bouncing ideas off of, you can get input. And I think having those people around you that have also been through it or are going through it, and that are ones that, lend a listening ear, give you some good advice, and allow you to, or pull you back up, are probably the 2 things that have helped you help me to make through the hard times that, otherwise are difficult. If I was having to do it all on my own, if I didn't have family and support system, if I didn't have mentors, it'd be a lot harder to not get bogged down.
Yeah, well, Devin, clearly we can keep you here for a day or two, learning all these awesome things from you. As you know, we'll try to keep it within the 10 minutes frame. I'd love to see if there was one thing that you would leave an aspiring entrepreneur today what would that be?
Yeah, if I were to leave kind of one takeaway, it would be, get a strategy and a plan in place as you're starting it now. Without fail, that strategy and that plan will change. It will pivot, it will adjust. You'll have to figure out new things. It may not work out the way. But I think that too often, especially when you're starting out, you get excited about an idea, you excited about an opportunity, you start to drink your own Kool-Aid, and you never do the work to see whether or not there's a market there, how you're going to be differentiating, how you're going to offer better services, how much you're going to charge for your charge for that, how you're going to market, you're going to do sales. There's a lot of moving parts. And I think rather than just diving in right out of the chute, it's much better to have that plan in place so you can at least convince yourself it's a good opportunity, that you have a starting point from which to work with. And then as things go along, be willing to pivot, be willing to adjust. But if I were to do one thing, is get a plan in place, realize it's going to change, but convince yourself it's a good opportunity before you dive all the way in.
Devin, it was so nice to virtually meet you. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and being open with the audience here. Thanks a lot, Devin. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.